Wright looked like himself this postseason. Great defenses, bad weather, nerves, injury, up for debate. Here are how the numbers shake out. Completion percentage, yards, passer rating, all way down. Wins, way up. He's undefeated. Has this postseason struggle changed how you view Drake Maye?
Not at all.
Oh, that's
not one
good,
iota. Because in the playoffs, it's about winning.
Oh, good.
Nick did his Super Bowl tiers or Mahomes Mountain of quarterback performances in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, John Elway, and Ben Roethlisberger didn't even make it. What was it, the top 20?
Top 20.
So they didn't even make it in the top 21. And those are two of the arguably top 5 quarterbacks of all time, and all 3 of them are Hall of Famers. But nobody thinks about that. You just think they won multiple Super Bowls. Nobody holds it against Peyton Manning at all that he wasn't great, or Elway, that they weren't great in those Super Bowls. So this is about winning, number one. So I'm fine with that because he has won. Secondly, he has faced 3 top 10 defenses. I mean, very few quarterbacks can say they face that type of murderer's row, so to speak, defensively, and it's going to get even tougher in the Super Bowl. And unlike a lot of the guys, Nick, that have played poorly in the playoffs, he has at least countered a lot of his poor play. And really, it's just fumbles. I mean, he hasn't been as accurate and all that, but fine. Like I said, you're playing tough defenses. In Denver, at least, the weather was a problem. You've been under major duress from the pass rushes. But I think it's mainly been him fumbling the football. But what he's done is he has countered all of those mistakes with great plays. The highlight reel pass to Kayshon Boutte again in the second round against Houston for the touchdown. The runs against Denver. I mean, he literally won that game for them with his legs. So I get that he hasn't played as well as he did in the playoff or in the regular season, but I think he's shown moxie. He's shown that I can overcome adversity, that if I start poorly, I'm not going to melt as a young player. So I'm impressed with what he's done.
So impressed is too far for me. It hasn't changed how I view him because while I didn't necessarily expect him to struggle to this degree, him struggling somewhat is what I expected. I think the person on the desk who would probably changed how I viewed him the most is KW.
Yeah.
Because KW got very upset with us when we said before his first playoff game he might struggle.
I've never seen it. Now I've seen it.
And going into his most recent playoff game, thought that he was going to light up the Denver defense. Neither of which happened. But I also think we can be fair to the player without being patronizing. I'm saying you're being patronizing. That the level of drop-off is bordering on unprecedented territory. It has not mattered. And if they win Sunday, it won't matter. But as far as passer rating or completion percentage from the regular season to the playoffs, here's what it looks like. Where it's the second biggest drop in passer rating in a postseason in the last 30 years. Now, Peyton won the Super Bowl that year, to your point, so nobody cares. It is. I
mean, is it one part of that because you have to have kind of a pretty high passer rating to?
No, of course, right? Yeah, I mean that's right, but that's why it's a drop-off, right? I'm not saying it's the worst playoff performance of the last 30 years, but as far as a drop-off, it is from completion percentage, which again was one of his calling cards. It is the biggest drop-off ever, and this is of the last 30 years, the graphics, but it's the biggest drop-off ever.
And again, he had a really high.
He had a really high. But his playoff numbers, if they were regular season numbers, this is where they would rank.
Okay, I love football. I love talking about this stuff, seriously. And I love that they create some of these arguments because it is the exact reason that gives me a place to exist. Like, I'm watching this, and at some point I'm just kind of like, yes, please keep going, give me more to work off of. I'm literally out here just collecting pens because I'm getting anxious. I'm like grabbing stuff because I'm just like, yes, keep giving me stuff to work with. Keep giving me. Brew even said he hasn't been as accurate this puffs. And I already told you guys last time he is. His on-target percentage is near identical. Okay? I understand the completion percentage. I understand the passing yards, the passer rating. I understand all of that, all of that, all of that, all of that. But it all has to be put into context. Not to mention multiple of these games in the playoffs, the weather was brutal. The weather was absolutely brutal. Okay? At one point you couldn't even see just obviously everyone remembers the AFC Championship game the most because that was bizarre. Colin himself even said that that was one of the craziest games he's ever watched. In terms of like weather conditions impacting game. And listen, I'm going to trust Colin in that regard because the dude's been around for a long time and has been covering this stuff for a long time. And he's a lot older. Some of my memories I'm going to start dipping into when I'm like 10 years old, 8 years old, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure I've watched other crazy games, but it's like, Colin 30 years ago is still a grown man. Okay. So like I'm just gonna I'll take his word for it, like kind of how exceptionally crazy a game like that was. It feels these days that we've seen so many crazy games and whether it was something like the Steelers versus what was that, the Cleveland Browns or the Bills and the 49ers. Like seems like we've been exposed to some of these crazy weather games, but like that game was insane. Just one game like that alone is enough to torch statistics. Absolutely torch statistics. You're talking about a very narrow, limited 3-game sample size. Not to mention, you then had the game prior to that against the Houston Texans, which was an elite defense. Okay, they only gave up, I think, 21 points, because one of them was either, I forget if it was a pick six or a scoop and score, because again, that game was so crazy. Everybody was slipping and sliding. It was rain. It was snow. I guess I don't even know what it was at one point. It was all over the place. It was freezing cold. Like it was a sloppy game in that regard. And everybody was partaking in the sloppiness, quite frankly. And so now you're talking about 2 games with weather that is bad. And we can say, well, you have to be able to play great in bad weather, this, that, and it's like, sure. And he did really well in it. All things considered, we can say that he just used his legs, but he also made a couple really nice throws and some gotta have it moments, or at the very least even if they didn't necessarily lead to a touchdown or lead to a field goal, it keeps defenses honest. It keeps your offense motivated. It keeps everyone still connected, where people aren't kind of like, we can't even pass. We can't do anything. Nobody can catch. Like he made a really nice throw to M. Holland, like even little things like that you're watching and you're like, okay, the Patriots can still operate when you were watching and granted it was Jared Stum, but you were just like, this offense can't operate. You're like, you're if you're a Broncos fan, you're just hoping that somehow you squirt through and somehow like you get some crazy chunk 50-yard play, because there was no sense that you were going to be able to do anything if you needed to. You were just really hoping someone slips and falls or whatever, and because it's a crazy weather game, that you're able to just somehow break off some big chunk play, because then at least maybe that can put you in a position to score. But like Drake Maye has not been playing bad throughout the course of these playoffs. And this is what I find so interesting, and this is a conversation in itself, and I am tempted to make a separate video about this, because we talk about we haven't decided when we want to emphasize playoffs and when we don't, and they brought up the point of like a Peyton Manning who hasn't necessarily been exceptional in these Super Bowls or playoff run or whatever it may be, and yet we consider him an all-time great because everything he does, it's just his career as a whole, winning multiple Super Bowls. Whether we want to say it's all because of him or not is irrelevant. He's got 2 rings, especially that last ring was like he was hardly this massive driving force behind it. But regardless, all the things that he's done throughout the course of his career, he's exceptional. He's awesome. And that's not controversial, and I'm not here to dispute that. But I do find it really interesting because when we have other players who are great during the regular season, we'll say, yeah, but can they do it in the playoffs? Like, it's the playoffs. At the end of the day, it matters what you do in the playoffs. And then we have other quarterbacks who step up in the playoffs, whether it's an Eli Manning or a Jalen Hurts most recently. And yet we'll be like, yeah, but he can't carry the team during the regular. Yeah, but like he's only thrown for 25 touchdown, whatever it is. And it's like, but then he balls out in the Super Bowl. He balls out during the playoffs. So, but it's like we just pick and choose when we want these things to matter. And this is what I always scream to fan bases. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It only matters to the individual fans of said quarterback, to the Drake Maye fans, to the Patrick Mahomes fans, to the Jalen Hurts fans. I'm about to sneeze on the truth, excuse me, as I sneeze on the truth. And, and it is really interesting. I find it always fascinating where fan bases draw the line between their team and the quarterback. And I don't have a strong sense of the masses in terms of the Drake Maye fans. Like, definitely have that with Lamar, definitely have that with Mahomes. Those are the two loudest quarterback fan bases that transcend Ravens and Chiefs. Like, no question about it. That I don't see as strongly with a lot of these other quarterbacks, even Josh Allen. And again, it's not to say that they don't have individual fan bases, but to me, it's just very frontward facing with Lamar and Mahomes fans and Baker Mayfield fans, actually. And so, it is kind of interesting. And so, the whole thing, like, it doesn't matter if he had this type of drop-off, but they still win the Super Bowl, right? It doesn't because, like, dude, Tom Brady, again, this is what's so great about talking to the Patriots fan base, is because, like, you know, Tom Brady better than any other fan base out there. You literally lived through it, and it's like Tom Brady won all these rings. I don't remember all the big moments. I don't know how many games did he win where he just did not play that well, whether it was a divisional round, whatever it is. And, like, I remember when I was kind of going through some of the stats where I found some Tom Brady games that he didn't play well in the playoffs, but he still won the game. And I'm like, see, like, even Tom Brady has, like, thrown multiple interceptions and still won. I was, like, trying to make the argument that, like, you're not always perfect. And Patrick Mahomes has hardly been great. I did a whole video comparing Jalen Hurts' Super Bowl stats to Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl stats. Patrick Mahomes right now, currently, even if we don't take away the 2 touchdowns that he got in garbage time against the Eagles when they were literally getting blown out, he has 10 touchdowns and 8 turnovers. And if you take away those 2 garbage touchdowns, which they are garbage time, like, that's indisputable. He's got 8 touchdowns in meaningful minutes and 8 turnovers, and yet he's got 3 Super Bowl wins, and that's all anyone cares. And he's got the awesome regular season stats. And so I think these things only matter, and I emphasize this a lot when we're having legacy conversations, when you're talking about, is he the GOAT, and if people are going to, if Drake Maye enters the conversation, which I believe he will within the next couple of years, especially as Allen and Mahomes and Lamar age out, when we're saying, like, who's the best quarterback in the NFL, and we start to get in those conversations between, is it Caleb Williams? Is it Jaden? Is it Drake? Is it some other guy who hasn't been drafted yet? And if Drake Maye has a Super Bowl, that's when people like me could then be like, listen, Drake Maye's not. Yeah, he has a Super Bowl. I understand that Caleb doesn't, but look what he did in the Super Bowl. He didn't even play that well during the, in the playoffs. Blah, 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 blah. Caleb Williams, actually, and I'm making this up, Caleb Williams has even better stats. But yeah, he's low, like, kind of some of the similar things that I do with, like, Josh Allen argument or something. That's the only time that it kind of matters. Or if we're now starting to have, like, true legacy-defining conversations like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and you're like, well, wait a second, dude. Tom Brady has clearly been significantly better in Super Bowls than Patrick Wilms. I think they already have the same number of turnovers or interceptions, and yet Tom Brady has literally doubled the game. So it's like, I think one quarterback has been a lot more efficient than the other. And so, like, that's when that stuff matters. But I think if Drake Maye was actually just not playing well, and I see these stats drop off because I'm just like, this guy's missing them. He's turning the ball over. He's making objectively bad throws, bad decisions, etc. Then yes, then these stats would be more telling. That's not the sense of these games. Yes, he's had some fumbles, and we could say it's because he's holding on to the ball or whatnot. I mean, I that is fair. It is. But it's just, I don't know, in a weird enough way, I just, if he had 4 turnovers and there were 4 interceptions, I would care so much. Especially as long as they're like true interceptions and they weren't just like, tipped up in the air or, just a spectacular defensive play. But it was just like, you're making a bad throw. You're making a bad decision right now, right? Like Patrick Mahomes is, and I'm not picking on Patrick Mahomes, has nothing to do with Mahomes. It's just fresh in my memory, like bad interception in the Super Bowl against the 49ers, against, with Brock Purdy, bad interceptions against the Philadelphia Eagles. We could say, well, there was pressure that it's like they were not good, like they just weren't good, and he'll be the first one to tell you, and we can go down the list. Lamar Jackson had bad interception and whatnot, and it's like the fumble for him in against the Buffalo Bills last year, like I kind of defended it. I was just like, listen, he's a hypermobile quarterback. Like, it's unfortunate that it happened, but like it's guaranteed to happen. These mobile quarterbacks, these quarterbacks that are always looking to make plays with their legs, they're going to have more fumbles than, say, a traditional pocket passer. Like, it's just what's going to happen. And it was unfortunate that it happened in that moment. But I'm not going to crush him for it. Unless he was really dancing around for 5 minutes back there. And then it was like, well, yeah, if you dance around for 5 minutes, of course that's going to happen. And so it's a little bit lower on the level, on like the importance hierarchy for me. Now, listen, to be fair, if he's in the Super Bowl right now and he's got 2 strip sacks, 2 fumbles, like, yeah, I'm going to be like, what are you doing? Like, this is a pattern that you got to stop it. And if it keeps going, you're like, this is more of a pattern. And I can't just say, all right, it just is happening. But, I think a couple times that a couple of these turnovers that happened felt like it was just, he was just kind of getting swallowed up, and it was unfortunate that they were leading to fumbles. And yeah, I think if he just plays objectively poorly in this Super Bowl, then it can maybe continue to add context to this whole playoff run. And maybe it'll force me to be like, well, I guess maybe he didn't play as great as I thought he would. Like, maybe I'm giving too much up to just the general football gods, distribution of stats, the weather, et cetera, et cetera. Like, maybe I'm being too forgiving. But I don't anticipate that, honestly. Even if he continues this trend, there's a good chance that I'm just going to be like, yeah, the Seahawks defense was just awesome. And there's a lot of throws that were not there for him, or like he was forced to make a lot of these tight window throws, or he had to use his legs, or listen, the Seahawks got, they got a lead. And so now Drake Maye was really forced to try to make a play in the pocket, and he held onto the ball too long. I just think you have to see how you get to the stats, how you get to the decisions that you make. Not all turnovers are created equally. And I think it also depends on, is the team putting you in a position to turn the ball over? Like, what's H? How is this all unfolding? So I just don't think you can look at stats like this and just automatically make to these, jump to these conclusions, and even then try to show these graphics where you're like, the drop-off is historic, and it's just like, I mean, sure, I suppose, and it is really impressive when you see these quarterbacks truly elevate. You see Josh Allen elevate. That's what, to me, that's one of the best things that Jalen Hurts has going for him. Like, he truly elevates and has ice in his veins in these big games. And that is a huge reason why you have any type of ground to say Jalen is a top quarterback, because it's not necessarily what he does during the regular season. And it's not that we haven't seen that out of Drake Maye. I haven't watched these games thinking that Drake Maye is just overwhelmed, or the nerves, or that he's being confused by the defenses. And now that he's just playing better defenses or better teams, that he's just like can't get the job done. Like, I don't feel that way at all. I've never watched the game, any of his playoff games right now, and felt, oh my gosh, Drake Maye, man, like Josh McDaniels has to do everything he can to limit the mistakes or the issues that Drake Maye has. Like, I never had that feeling. I'm watching these games and I'm just like, yeah, it kind of makes sense how this is going. He's getting swallowed up in the pocket, or the weather is insane, or, the defense is swarming. Like, I'm just like, yeah, it makes sense how this is unfolding. It just makes sense to me. And when you compare that to him being, this is his first real full-time season as a starter, and the first time that he's with Josh McDaniels, Vel, etc., just this roster as a whole, he is a young, what is he, 22, 23, whatever the heck he is, obviously incredibly young, and now he's in the Super Bowl. I'm so much more forgiving, especially of all of that, than I would be of, again, even Mahomes, who's, has already been to multiple Super Bowls, and he's been around the block, and he is mature, and he's been with Andy for, 5+ years or whatever. Like, I just think there is kind of a hierarchy of all of this, and so there is absolutely nothing that is happening throughout this playoff run that has changed my view of him whatsoever. But I will say, and this is where I'll end things, to slightly undercut everything that I said, although I don't really think it's an undercut, I think it is fair, though, to give like an extra praise to, say, Jaden Daniels in his playoff run, who I felt elevated. Now, again, he was playing different teams, different defenses. So it's just like, it's not one or the other. It's not saying, see, he did better in the playoffs, therefore he's better. But I just still think it's appropriate to kind of appreciate and emphasize and respect. And just because Drake hasn't necessarily done that in the same level or in the same capacity, or at least statistically, it doesn't mean that I'm going to now hold his feet to the fire either, because, like Bruce said, a lot of the plays that he's made, you're like, this is high-level football and high-level moments in got-to-have-it moments in very brutally difficult circumstances, whether it's the weather, whether it's the defense, whether it's just the actual circumstance itself, where it's like it's the fourth quarter, it's, on the road conference championship, whatever it may be, and he's shown up. And so, what more can I say? If he consistently plays like this throughout the course of the playoffs, throughout his career, then yeah, that becomes a lot more of a talking point, right? Like, it becomes a legitimate thing where you're like, this guy doesn't he doesn't have his best games in the AFC championship games, in the Super Bowls, and like, yeah, then that would be worth talking about. It would be worth discussing, but I just don't think we're at that place right now. So, but those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Drake Maye? Do you think his playoff struggles change how you view him? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. And let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.